So maybe I'm kind of curious, maybe you're about to say something here, but also kind of your approach to studying as well, because you do these in-depth studies and you cover a wide range of topics, yet there is kind of this need to kind of have a basic understanding, maybe a lot of stuff. So how would you go about kind of keeping that broad range of knowledge on these different issues that you teach on? Or is it just that you've been doing it so long that stuff just kind of sticks?
Oh man, I'm a leaky vessel. So even my own even my own studies that I taught are better than me as a resource, because that was when it was fresh on my mind and everything was sharp, and I'd been focusing on that issue for consistently for days or weeks. And so like 2 years later you ask me about it, and I'm like, yeah, there was something important about that. So we're all like that. I think, or at least most of us are like that. Some have amazing memories. I'm not. But
Yeah.
what I would say is, have a plan for how to deal with it when you're caught flat-footed. If you come across, say, somebody that's got weird teachings, um, find first, here's step one: find a more important weird teaching. Right? Don't just pick any weird thing they say and chase it down, but pick one that you're like, that's important. That relates to Jesus. That relates to salvation. That relates to the nature of God. Pick one that's like they say, and you go, well, that's. Then you start asking questions, and rather than you proving them wrong, you ask them to prove themselves right. In this, you're gathering info, and you're getting what scriptures they use. And if you don't know the verse, you stop and you say, can we look at that in context? I'm not familiar with that. And you just take your time and you're patient. All you're doing is gathering the data so that you picked one real important issue, so that you can then respond with that verse in context, with good teaching about that topic. And that way, even if you're caught completely off guard, you have a usable game plan that starts entirely with just questions to gather information.
Right. And I think that's so good. And you gather that information, you go to trusted resources, start doing your research, dive into scripture and looking at what does scripture have to see about this? How does it actually compare against what we know is true? Is so good. Now, kind of along with our last interview, I'm kind of curious because when I interviewed you on the Passion Translation, you were just about to start your Passion project. And so I'm kind of curious to just kind of hear, maybe if you want to give a brief overview of what that project was for those who maybe don't know about it. And then I'm kind of just curious to hear, like, are there any new insights, maybe some cool things that you learned during that time that you kind of want to share, and kind of reflecting back on that project that you spent a lot of time putting a lot of work into.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the short version. Right. So the Passion Translation is a new translation that got a hold of my attention because when I looked into it just a little bit, it was catching on wildfire in certain circles, certain Christian circles. It's becoming the Bible for their church,
Right.
and it comes with all these promises. They're talking about how it's going to ignite your heart for God. It's like a translation that's going to unlock the love language of God. And I'm like,
Right.
that sounds interesting. So
Yep.
I look into it and I see a bunch of problems with it. And I make videos talking about those issues, trying to be gracious, but like, it's a bad translation. It's not even a translation. It's literally not a translation. It's at best an interpretive paraphrase at best. So I made videos, but then I got pushback, and they're like, Mike, it feels like it's you versus this author, Brian Simmons, who made it. And I don't know which one of you I trust more. And I get that. If you don't follow all of the original language stuff, like, you're kind of picking someone to trust. So I thought, here's a solution. I'll hire a group of as much as I can unbiased scholars, and I'll have them each review the translation, and then I'll post their reviews, their scholarly reviews, for free. And that's the Passion Project. So I got really highly respected, really well-known scholars. I got Douglas Moo, right? Worked on the NIV translation. I got Craig Blomberg. I got Nijay Gupta. I got Tremper Longman, who's like one of, if not the world expert on the poetic books of the Old Testament, right? And so I just got some really solid people to do this stuff. They all reviewed the translation. I made their papers available for free, and I interviewed each of them one at a time. Daryl Bach was another one. And they each reviewed different books. So Douglas Moo reviewed Romans, and Romans is like his bread and butter, right? That's what he's done. Craig
Yeah.
Blomberg reviewed 1 Corinthians, and he's done that. And Jay Gupta did Galatians, and he's focused on that. So I got scholars in their area of expertise and specialism. Boom. There's the Passion Project in a nutshell. Craig Blomberg said of the Passion Translation that it deserves a Surgeon General's warning because of its potential hazards.
Yeah.
And he's a nice guy, by the way. He's a really nice guy. Douglas Moo, when he presented the paper to me and it was all done, he goes, I hope I wasn't too harsh, because he doesn't want to be confrontational or rude, but it is what it is, And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's all there. The response, I think there's been real pushback. I haven't heard any actual response from Brian Simmons to the project, because he's the single guy,
Right.
the major guy behind the Passion translation. I haven't heard any real response to it. He said at one point he was eager to see what scholars said about it, and I provided him with that opportunity.
Did you send him all the videos and the papers?
Oh, he knows.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, he knows. Yeah, we had a private conversation, but I had to keep that private, so I can't share any of the details of that
Right.
convo. That was part of the agreement to be able to have it.
Right.
So, so but we did talk, and he's very aware of all this stuff. And others are looking into it. What I found is there's some who were supporting it before, who are, because of this project, they're like, wow, I didn't know that. I just thought Brian was a solid guy. Like, I thought, boy, he seems sincere, and maybe it's just the Spirit's really called him to do this. And then they see that the actual work itself put under scrutiny, and they go, oh no, that's a real problem. And so that's the advantage of this project. I don't want a bunch of his private theology shoved into the pages of the New Testament and Old Testament,
Right.
where he's adding verses and adding not just verses, but adding whole sentences in some cases that are nowhere in the original language, adding words that would be foreign, ideas that are foreign to the text. And he does this an awful lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that was my next question for you on that is I know, like, in the people that I've talked to, maybe I have to be a little careful. I don't know, but in certain circles that I run in, the Passion Translation is very popular, and so I have a hard time, and I want to say certain things, and at times I do, and other times, it's going to be in a little bit quiet or whatnot. But what I find is that most people who love it, after having a thoughtful conversation with them, it's because they don't really realize what it is or what it claims to be or what it does. It's like, oh no, this is just like the Message. This is just like any other paraphrase, written in a beautiful way, and not really taking it back and comparing it against a more literal translation like an NASB or ESV or something, to see whole ideas added in. And what I often find is it's more of a popular translation because of a misunderstanding of what it maybe is. And after having that conversation and being like, here's what Brian Simmons did, here are the claims that he made of where he got this knowledge from, and now compare that against an ESV and realize this isn't just a paraphrase. These are different ideas being presented. Then all of a sudden the red flags kind of go up there as well for those people. And it's like, wow, I didn't even realize it. Because like, and one question I was asked, and maybe, I don't know if you have an answer to this, because I maybe doubt it because you're not part of the app, but like, it's like, well, but the Bible app has it. And so like, if this isn't a good, reliable translation, why would apps like the Bible app put it as an option? And so I'm kind of curious if you have something on that, as well as just, is that kind of been your experience as well of when people hear this, it's like, wow, I was unaware. I just thought this was just like every other translation that's out there.
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to say, hey, why do we think that any version that's on my Bible app is automatically good? Like, that seems kind of naive. Like, that's all it takes, huh? Just any version. Here's my Bible app. Yeah. It's got 67 Bible translations on it. 67 of them, including the Passion, for last I checked, right?
Yep.
It's got the World English Bible. Never heard of that one. World Messianic Bible, never heard of that one either. Young's Literal Translation, which I think is kind of weird. It's got the Radiate New Testament.
Radiate.
Never heard of that. I don't know who wrote that or where it came from. It's got everything in here, right? It's got the Message, and I don't like the Message, even though I know a lot of people do. Personally, I think that it does. Yeah. If find a better paraphrase than that one, please. in my opinion. It's got a bunch of stuff in here. There's no reason to assume that these are automatically good translations. I just don't get it. Here's the Catholic public domain version. Okay. Yeah, that won't have bias at all, right? Like, it's not going to be trying to avoid the fact that Jesus had brothers and sisters or anything like that. So I think that we have to challenge that kind of concept. The Passion Translation is presented to people as though it is this like charismatically. In one place, Brian Simmons, he says different things to different audiences. In one place, he says, hey, there's no bias here on the website. He's like, there's no bias. I'm not representing, this translation does not represent any particular denomination or group or any sort of bias within Christianity. Then in front of other audiences, he goes, this is the only translation that has signs and wonders and apostolic calling and transportation and visitations and miracles built into the translation. And you're like, well, which one is it? Well, it depends on what audience he's talking to at the time. This is part of the problem with the translation. I think that he's a better salesman than he is a translator.
Yeah.
And so it's sold as a charismatic translation, and I believe in the gifts. Okay, I'm not cessationist, but it's sold as a charismatic translation, and that appeals very much to people who are hungry for revival and hungry for deeper experiences with God. And I think that he's using that as an in, but in the end, he's not representing the text properly. So it's no longer what Paul wrote. It's what how Brian rewrites what Paul wrote.
Yeah. So I'm curious what you would say. A good friend of mine, I found it, or he told me his pastor uses the translation. He never thought much about it. And then we had a long conversation one day about it. He went to church the next Sunday, and sure enough, like all the passages were quoted out of the TPT, and it started raising some flags for him, but he loves his church. He loves his pastor, and he has that relationship with his pastor where he goes, I want to talk to him. Now, I haven't talked to him in a little bit, so I don't know if he has talked to his pastor or not about this, but I'm just kind of curious of what would be your suggestion, your recommendation for those who are maybe attending churches where this translation is used from time to time, or is the main translation. What should they do? Should they talk to the pastor, just let it go, or find a new church? How far should they go in responding?
I mean, my first thing is always go talk to the guy, talk to the pastor, the elders. If you have a church that's led by a group of elders, ask to speak with the elders, plural, because you want the wisdom of multiple people in case somebody just ignores you. Someone else in the room might listen. If you have a pastor, church that's led mostly just by one senior pastor who's kind of like fully in control of everything, then talk to him and go super graciously. He gets people who aggressively come to him and they're mad about nitpicky things. And so you want to make sure you don't come off that way, because then he'll shut you down, right? So my recommendation is you go and you say, hey, I love you. I appreciate you. I love our church. I noticed you were using the Passion Translation. I have some concerns. And here's what I'd recommend. You say, would you be willing to listen to and consider some of my concerns? Rather than, this is a horrible translation. I can't believe you're using it. You're failing as a pastor, right? All the walls. I mean, unless he's a very humble man, all the walls are going to go right up, right? The other thing is I'd recommend, saying, hey, are you willing to look into this a little bit? I have some resources. This guy, Mike Winger, hired a number of very highly respected scholars to review the translation, and it's available for free for you to, and you could send them some of these videos. People will watch a video without interrupting it, but they won't listen to you in person without interrupting you. And so you can't always make your full case, and that's why I made that resource. It was for churches who go, hey, I'm willing to look into this, but I don't want to take someone's word for it. Like, I really want to see it. And people who know, they know that these guys are major, like, respected and serious committed Christians. They're not just brainy scholars. They're serious committed Christians, the people that are part of the project. They love the Lord, and they did a good job dealing with the issue. So you could either print out the papers for free on my website, BibleThinker.org, go to the Passion Translation, the Passion Project, Every paper's for free. Print it, hand it over to them, or send them to interviews. That's even better, because it shows all these clips of Brian Simmons saying wild, crazy things, and the scholars responding and saying, yeah, that's not true.
Right.